I have a pretty good body, like immune system and whatnot. I'm like quite astonished. I'm like my dad's the same way. We just don't get ill. Like I don't know how else to
Well,
explain it. So I'm so careless with my body because I never learned the hard way. You know what I mean?
my dad never got sick. Like I would
Yeah.
always get sick as a kid. Same with like I don't know. I can only speak for myself. I would always get sick. Now I don't get sick anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean I guess it makes sense. That's the similarly, that's like the master conclusion I came to. I remember I was working with my friend Matt because whatever, I was just I'm always an absolute idiot on the work on like the job. Like I always fuck something up. You know, I
Okay.
hit my head on something, I stub my toe on it's always something. And so I remember it hit me one time or whatever, I hurt myself and then I was like, oh, I'm like, I bet the reason why I'm so careless is because I've always had a decent pain tolerance. And so I never learned to be
Oh.
careful because it never truly bothered me to get hurt. And it's kind of a joke, but it's also probably mostly true because we learn from our mistakes, you know? And if we continually don't
No pain
get
tolerance. Yeah.
what?
Having no pain tolerance. It's a curse and a blessing.
Right.
It's
Well,
like
then you learn to be, yeah, to make sure you don't get in pain. Yeah.
mhm.
It's just, it's a basic like evolution thing. You know, it's a basic principle within evolution. Um,
Like learning to not get hurt, you're saying?
Wait, is evolution the right word? Hold on, let me think. I'm losing my train of thought. To learn from our mistakes. No, evolution's not the right word. What word am I trying to think of?
Self reflection? Like you learn are you talking about like when you learn
Well,
from
I
others or
guess
learn
it,
from yourself?
I guess it kind of would. Or sorry, I guess this is something that I've seen because of evolution. Something that we've learned is that like that's why we have like bad memories are a lot more, are a lot easier to conjure than good memories. You
Mm,
know, it's easier to remember the bad times as opposed to the good times because the bad times are a
you can
reminder
learn
of
from
how you
them.
can get hurt.
Okay.
You know, whether it
Okay.
be mental or physical.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
true.
so I guess what I meant by that was I believe it's a product of evolution.
I mean, how many good memories do you recall when you're not talking to someone else about it? Like when you're by
Like
your
on the by day to day, you're saying?
no, I mean just in general. Like you're sitting, you're bored, you're thinking. How often will a good memory come rather than a bad memory?
I guess it depends. I don't really know where you're going. I don't know honestly. I haven't thought of it.
Like, will you be sitting there and like you'll just have bad memories come to you? Because like when I think about it, there's unless I'm like talking to someone about something we went and did,
Yeah.
like hey, remember when we went and did this?
Mm-hmm.
I will never think about that by myself.
Oh, I
I'll
see.
only think about
But you're saying
bad
right,
memories
right,
when
right.
I'm by
But if you're
myself.
gonna passively flow, it's always negative things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, I haven't, but but yeah, I definitely think sometimes a good memory will come, but overall the average is definitely more towards negative. Because there are times I'll just be sitting around and I'll just literally laugh out loud or smile because I think of
I
something
will
I'm like,
remember
oh,
something.
that's
That's true.
hilarious. But overall, you're definitely right because
Remember
your
a
brain is
joke.
trying to root through it. You know, very passively, it's trying to remember, recall, prepare for the next time something similar happens. I think weren't we talking about this a couple weeks ago? Maybe 3 weeks ago, kind of like how yeah, I remember when you, me, Austin, and the two Austins were outside. We were just kind of talking how like once one bad thing happens, something your brain just kind of keeps replaying it over and over again in different ways you would have handled it,
Oh.
so that it's almost like this
Yeah.
passive loop that's just going through your brain's like a little computer
What other
preparing.
options I got?
Right, so that then when it happens again, you'll be ready. And that's
But does
goes
that ever work?
no, it's
It's
always
so
bullshit.
weird. Yeah.
The its success rate is like 10% because you know it doesn't really
Is
happen
that real? Like there's studies on it or something?
for
Like going looping through it never works. Like
I
success rate is ten
believe, but
percent.
off the top of my head, I can't quote anything.
Okay.
But I do recall something with that. Maybe, I mean, I'll just be safe and just say from my own experience, I've noticed it, you know? Because it's definitely,
It
and it's
feels just
so hard.
useless.
Yes, and it's so hard to stop. Like, I'll
It's like
literally,
when you're
like,
going to bed.
I'll notice myself thinking it. I'm like, Jake, stop. And then I'm like, okay. And then 5 seconds go by and I'm thinking about it again.
Yes. You're completely
And it's
lost in it.
always something like if somebody like says some snarky thing that you weren't ready for, or like you know
You're like, I could have come back with
or you were
this.
trying to flirt with somebody and you did the wrong thing. It's always just these petty, stupid, primitive things that don't matter where you quote unquote lose. You know. And they just keep playing over and over again.
Yeah.
And you're like, fucking Christ, I don't care. And your brain's like, well, you kind of do. It's like, I swear
Yeah.
I don't. And they're like, well, you're
This is gonna
bullshitting.
stay here.
Yeah. But
And then
again,
something
and again,
happens.
I can say also from personal experience, and this is why I'm such an advocate for writing. And number one thing I've noticed that helps me is I just write it down. And we've talked about this
Like the
idea.
loop.
Yeah, like the loop. Like I remember one time, one of our housemates was really pissing me off, and so, or not really pissing me off, but he did something that pissed me off, and I was looping about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that finally got it out of my brain is I just wrote about it, and it was awesome. And and we've definitely talked about this because like I think if you want to go from like a science standpoint of like why that works, I think it's because the reason why it's looping is so that it's at the front of your brain. But whereas if you write it down, then your brain can be like, okay, we can now reference this whenever we need to. So we don't need to keep it in the front, in the front easy access location anymore. This is why I was listening to a podcast a long time ago, probably a year at this point, and it was this guy who's a really big advocate of writing your own autobiography because what his study had found. So I'm gonna draw a blank on the exact details, but essentially he was a researcher and he was trying to find a way to motivate college students or people maybe going into college.
Mm-hmm.
And oh no, it was college students because what he did is within his curriculum he also made them write like this autobiography, like it was just an assignment that he made all the students do, and he was passively kind of conducting this study on them, as just to see how it went.
Okay.
And he just found an extreme increase in just like self motivation, pursuing self purpose and blah blah because people were able to get out of their fixes, because people are just stuck in this moment of what's happened before.
They can finally watch who they really are.
Right, and they can grow and they can just kind of just move on from this thing that their brain is so desperately holding on to, you know? And so then the idea is that once you write it down, your brain's like, okay, I don't have to hold on to this anymore because I know if I need it, it's right there. That's why I think that mini book for me worked so well. The whole thing with the demons dancing in my head, that worked really well. Like broken relationships, like the end of them, one of which we were talking about recently. Like that, like that really helped because that just let me move on because I'm like, all right, I don't have to remember any of these things anymore. Like I can let them go, and then if we do spend one day and we finally tell each other off, I'll be like, hold on a second, I'll whip out my paper,
I'm prepared for this.
Like, oh wait, I have my notes, like, yeah. So yeah, I don't. So yeah, I think that's a really big thing. But I think it takes. I think it takes a bit of work to be able to truly let yourself flow. Because the number one thing I've heard people say because I've suggested this to a lot of people because writing saved me, but I've suggested like you should write, and number one thing they say is, well, I don't know what to write about, and that question alone shows that they don't know how to write because if you're gonna
so you're saying flow when writing.
In that
specific,
there's like writing different. Like I'm almost talking about two different writing because there's writing for like poetry or research, whatever you want to do. But then to like get your conscious mind flowing, that's what I'm saying. Like this flowing writing, like there is no objective other than releasing, and the releasing you can't know what you're about to release because it's not fully there yet, and so that's what I was talking about with the dream thing. Like just those 3 pages nonsense. Apparently my brain was too cluttered to even get a fucking sentence out, like just, but I had no, and like
it's the brain dump.
Yeah, and I think it's possible for everybody, but I definitely have noticed when I suggest this to people, I think a lot of people are scared to because they think they have to write the right things. Yeah. Like I almost want to publish some of my journal entries just to show how much of a moron I am because so many of them are just madness. Like because essentially, what the 3 main things I write about in my journal are either just like just recollection, what's happened recently, just recording it, poetic stuff that I extract and put into the blog, or just this brain dump, and like half the journal is just filled with just nonsense of me just getting it out, and it's good, like it's good, but like there's no greater purpose other than that thing. I might as well burn the pages after I'm done, but I don't because why would I?
What I have found is sometimes if I'm going to sleep, my mind's going on about something, but I don't do it when it's like something that's bothering me. It's like something I have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I always, when I was sleeping like sophomore year, I would instantly go to bed. Before I was able to go to sleep, I would constantly be getting up to my whiteboard and like writing stuff down for the next day.
Yeah, I've
And then
heard
a
that
lot of the
before.
time, I would just erase it in the morning. I read it and I'm like, yeah, okay, forget about it, done, done. So I've been doing it, writing it now too. Like if I'm in bed, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna write this down. It's out of my
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
Go back to bed. Next thing,
I
after 4 or 5 times, I'm ready.
Yeah, I was hearing that recently from somewhere. I'm not going to try to remember, but it was the same deal. They just suggested keep a little notepad or something by your bed,
Yeah.
just so then when those stupid reminders come up, just write it so that you don't have to bother yourself, you know?
I've heard like people like to do like plan out your next day before you go to bed.
Mm.
Because sometimes it's kind of what I'm doing when I'm sitting in
I
bed.
like to think about that too. Do you ever do that? What
Think
I
about
really
what?
like doing is sometimes this will help, and I don't do it too often, but what I like to do sometimes is I like to start. So like when I'm going to bed, I try to recall the beginning of my day onward. So first I recall my
Oh,
day, and then if I'm still awake by then, I then try to keep going into predicting like what I'll do tomorrow.
okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Because at first it's good because then it organizes what happened today, so I can let that all go, and then it's then prepping and planning, and
Okay.
it just kind of eases my mind. But I
I
don't
should
do it as
try
often
that.
as I should. Maybe I'll do it tonight.
Should try that.
Maybe
Go
that.
through the day. What happened?
What the fuck happened today? Yeah. It's a good question. We ask it a lot when during the day's happening.